What is up, Jabronis? JJ back here with the Kush, talking a little division round weekend in the NFL. And look at Holden, who has a haircut for today.
Yeah.
Look, I know you're always excited to see me. It's nice to see that you get your haircut now before we do shows. It just feels good to get like the best version of you. I feel like we always get dog shit, Holden, on any shows that I'm involved in with you.
Yeah.
But cleaned up look today. Obviously, you didn't dress the part, but that's fine. But you must be feeling good because you're looking good.
Nah, I feel like crap. Gassy, bloated, stuff like that. But you asked. Had you asked me before the show, I wouldn't have brought that up. But I'm feeling a little gross. A little gross.
Ask me no questions. I'll tell you no lies, right? I mean, I don't blame you.
If you look good on the outside, it doesn't matter how you feel on the inside, JJ. Doesn't matter.
I feel like that's the, you know what, probably the opposite, but it's fine. I mean, it works. So if it works for you.
We did pretty well in the super wild card round, my friend. Things went very well for this show, and I'm looking forward to continuing success here on this show. So welcome into Propped Up. JJ doesn't want to tell you about the name, so it doesn't matter. Not only that, not only is this called Propped Up, we're going to give you player props. We're going to give you best bets, maybe a same game parlay, some humor, and some other things. Sexiness is something else I think that you're going to get on this show. While many men don't care about that, it'd be good for you to learn it. JJ, let's go game by game, my friend, because this could be the best sports weekend of the year. Probably isn't. The first weekend of March Madness is the best, but this is pretty damn good. Talk to me here. We got our first game coming up tomorrow, 4:30 Eastern. Jags now 9-point dogs, been sitting at 7.5, 8, 8.5, now 9. That Chiefs money keeps coming in. I wonder if we get some Jaguars money coming in on Sunday. 52.5 is the total. You got any plays from this game? Because I got quite a bit.
Yeah, real quick, just to harp on the comment you made about last show being a good one. I mean, all year this show's been pretty profitable, obviously, for folks that have been watching it. And last week in particular was nice though, right? Because my favorite bet of the weekend in Dallas won basically sweat free. Second best bet, which was Jacksonville, won in quite turbulent fashion. And my favorite player prop was Geno over his pass yards, which also got there in quite turbulent waters as well. But needless to say, yeah, looking forward to this week. I obviously fired on a few. I let the RPB members know yesterday.
Let me add this. I mofoed you at a kid's birthday party because I didn't think Geno was going to get there. And then he did. And I said, boy, this JJ character, what a wonderful human being. I wasn't going to watch any of the game because I did have to go to my kid's birthday party, but it was a good time. Thank you for the win.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, to me, it was a decent script for him to get there. And it still happened to get there either way, but needless to say, all good all around. I want to be clear. I definitely lost quite a few bets last weekend, but it's like anything else, right? If your favorite bets hit, the bets you're most weighted on ends up being a decent weekend overall, which was good. But yeah, onto this game. So for me, and the fact that you say it's 9 now means this line likely moved a bit.
Yeah, it moved.
I like I'm talking the bet I made. So for me, I fired on Chiefs first half team total over 15.5. It probably didn't move much though. It might have moved to like 16 or 16.5.
It didn't.
Still 15.5.
Yeah. I mean, when I looked at it this morning, I'm not telling you on that one, but I wanted to wait.
Those are my favorite bets on this show.
I wanted to wait for the sales pitch. Give me the sales. I know you're happy when I fade your winners, but
I bet you if we pulled back all the curtains on every pick that I've given out that you said you don't like, I bet you they're like 80%.
Yeah, you're probably about 80%. I think so.
So for me, it's a few things. First of all, the Chiefs, obviously, their issues are usually covering spreads in general, right? So part of me wanted to bet the first half Chiefs. To me, though, Jacksonville's defense is nothing to be proud of. I think the Jacksonville's won the games that they've won, the streak that they've been on. Why have they been on the streak? They've been on the streak because Trevor Lawrence has found seemingly the better version of himself. Now, granted, the guy still throws 4 picks, and they still win last week, which I think is going to make people tough to want to back Kansas City in this spot, especially a team in KC that hasn't covered many spreads this year. But I will say this, to me, when Kansas City has covered spreads, it's been because they've come out early and they've gotten on the board early. They played Jacksonville earlier in the year. I want to say they had 17 first half points. I think, I don't know off the top of my head. I know the final game was 27-17. And I know they kind of hit the brakes a bit later in the game. But I do believe they came out early. And to me, this is classic Andy Reid off a bye, right? you just get a guy that's typically very prepared for these types of rounds and these types of matchups. And let's not forget, I think it was last year, right, where Kansas City was up 24-3 at the half or 21-0 at the half against Cincinnati. I don't know if that was the first game or the divisional round, but either way, this team does come out strong. It's the quote unquote the adjustments that don't get made for why this team tends to struggle at times. I do think, to me, if you're betting Kansas City, like with the spread in any fashion, I think you have to like the first half, right? Because Jacksonville's been a better second half team all year. Kansas City's been a better first half team most of the year. And I think they get on the board early. And again, Jacksonville's defense is nothing to be proud of. You give Andy Reid an extra week to prepare. Love the spot. And give me 2 touchdowns and a field goal for KC. And I've bet this bet a few times this year for KC. Hasn't done me wrong yet this year when I've chosen to bet it. And I do like the spot this weekend.
So the only thing is, do we know how the Chiefs do off the bye, like in the first half or the first quarter? Does it matter at this point?
I don't necessarily think it matters too much. I think either way, KC was very likely preparing to play the Chargers or Jacksonville. Like I think we were all kind of under the same impression that we don't think Baltimore's quarterback's going to win in Cincinnati and Miami's going to win in Buffalo. So, and granted, the Baltimore game was a little sneaky there for a bit, but to me, I don't necessarily know the numbers off a bye because ultimately it's not like a true bye, right, where you know who you're playing. But I do believe they were going to begin to prepare for either Jacksonville or the Chargers. And the Chargers, they've seen a bunch this year, so to me, they would have probably prepared a little more for the Jaguars. But needless to say, I just know from a scripted perspective, you give Andy Reid this much time to prepare for a game. It just makes sense that KC comes out the first few drives very efficient on offense.
I like the look. I'm going to attack this from a different way, though, in the first half. I also like the first half thing. But what I'm going to do is same game parlay it just a little bit. I'm going to get even money on over 1.5 touchdowns for KC and over a half a touchdown for Jacksonville at even money. So same game parlayed that up at even money.
So you're basically saying 3 touchdowns in that first half.
Correct. And Jaguars will get one of them.
Okay.
And you're saying there's at least 2 touchdowns from the Chief itself, right?
I'm going to need 2 touchdowns. Yeah, I mean, unless Booker goes bonkers.
I think the Jaguars can back that up. So that's the first one. Okay, I got a lot of plays in this one. I was digging around and I saw Jamal Agnew at 10.5 yards. I know you're going to laugh. It's like nobody's going to be on this shitty play, but it's a good play. His ADOT's like 6 yards. He's been targeted 1 time over the last couple of games. They don't use him. Marvin Jones, Zay Jones, Evan Engram. I mean, how many? Christian Kirk. He's like 6th in the pecking order. So I'm going to go with Jamal Agnew under 10.5 yards receiving. And then a little field play. Little field play here. I think Evan Engram's going to have a big day for this Jaguars offense. And I'm not really enamored with too much defensively for the Chiefs outside of Jones in the pass rush. I think Evan Engram could do some major damage here. And him going over 44.5. I think this opened at 42.5. I got in just a couple hours too late. But at 44.5, I'm willing to go over. So Jamal Agnew under 10.5. Evan Engram over 44.5. And then me and Mangone, we're having a little conversation, JJ. I want to get your thoughts on this bet. Marvin Jones, who's sitting there just about 6 targets every game, over 25.5 yards. Thoughts?
Look, it's hard not to like any of the pass catchers for Jacksonville in a kitchen sink type game. I think that you can take a bunch of them. You can take alternates. I think if you think Jacksonville is going to hang in this game, people on Jacksonville some people are going to have big games for Jack. Like it's just inevitable, right? So whether it's Marvin Jones at the soft number, I will say this, that you with Marvin Jones, you're really hoping to get a very similar script you had against the Chargers. They just don't use him he obviously needed to be on the field a lot because of the way the score was. Mm-hmm. But look, he's still a part of that offense, and it's a soft number. I definitely can't mind it.
Yeah. So 3 props there, threw together a little same game. Not very much money, but just throw Trevor Lawrence in there with Engram and Marvin Jones as well. Let me go see Jones real quick.
While you're doing that, I'll make quick shout outs to the chat. Matt, I know I already gave you the shout. Mike, wearing Eagles gear. I will be in some facet of Eagles gear tomorrow. Yes. The get back on the horse, cheese omelets for breakfast. Yeah, Fran, you don't got to worry about me. The cheese omelets are always part of the staple. Favorite first, is that first touchdown? Was that what that was meant? TF, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. First TF. I don't know. What's TF, Richie Smalls, and West Coast Gem?
Had to be a type. It has to be first touchdown,
Yeah.
right?
I do not go to Fantastic Sam's, and this looks much better than Fantastic Sam's.
I couldn't even imagine. Is Fantastic Sam's a barbershop? Like a franchise?
I think it's a chain, kind of like Sport Clips.
I couldn't even imagine going to a chain haircut place.
No, and there's a what is that? Sports Clip right near my gym and by the studio. And no, there's just no way I'm going. I see guys coming out there. They're just they look miserable. There's frowns on their face. There's anger. There's pain in their eyes. So no, that's not a place I'm going to do.
What's up, Dave? And as for first touchdown, so Richie, I will say this because it's always my recommendation for anybody that does bet first touchdowns. I think to heighten your chances of winning, I think you should always pick 3 players from the same team. Whatever team you think will score first, if it's Jacksonville, if it's KC, and I know sometimes underdog, whatever, but your underdogs get a little better odds. So take 3 from the same team and hope that team scores first, because then you heighten your chances of obviously cashing. I will say this though, because these are really 2 offenses that aren't so concentrated. It does make it difficult, right? The Chiefs aren't very concentrated, and Jacksonville just has so many guys that can score a touchdown. I mean, Ingram, Jones, Kirk, Zay Jones, obviously Marvin, and ETN. There's just so many mouths on that offense these days. It's tough. It wouldn't be a game not to say that I'd target first touchdowns anyway, but that game is just so much lack of concentration on both sides. So I would advise skip that game, maybe pick a different game for first touchdowns, but if I had to give you a shot, my best shot would say take 3 guys from the same team.
All right, real quick on Marvin Jones: 6 targets, 4, 7, and 6. And then last week too, where he had a nice game. So he's involved in the offense. I feel good about Jones over 25.5. Feel good about Ingram over 44.5. If you don't feel like that's a great number, just bet it live. And hope that he doesn't get a catch on that first drive, get it down to 40 or something like that.
He's been an absolute freak, and it just goes to show you, Holden. I mean, confidence. How big of a part is that in the NFL and in every sport for that matter? This guy is basically the same guy he was a few years ago. He looks physically the same. He was always a freak, and now he just looks like a monster. I mean, good for him.
So we'll go there, and it's the second half thing too. They really didn't use him much in the first half. Second half, he's just been a complete stud. Like button would be great. Subscribe, all that bullshit. What?
Sam, what's up, Dave? See, I actually pay attention to the chat.
Good timing.
Unlike you, who just avoids it.
Good timing on that, by the way.
Perfect.
In the middle of telling people what to do. But well, I digress. Perfect teaser spot if you're on the Eagles. -1.5 to take them down. They're 7.5-point favorites. 48 is the total here, and this is the game where I got absolutely nothing besides for throwing the Eagles in some teasers. Talk to me. 7 and a hook. Could you picture back in the Giants?
So it does look like this is relatively mutual, right? Money coming in, money going out. It looks like a handful of people consider Giants good value with how they're playing, and a handful of people are willing to believe that the Eagles are still the Eagles of earlier in the year. I will say this: one of my favorite bets of the weekend is first half Eagles -3.5. That was at DraftKings -120. This is a team that before Jalen Hurts got hurt was actually having a borderline historical good first half of games. If we remember earlier in the year, maybe even the middle of the year, we were talking about how this team consistently would hit the brakes in the second half of football because they were up in most games by like 2 or 3 scores. I get it. There's some continuity issues with this Eagles team. Lane Johnson's going to be out. We don't know for a fact if Jalen Hurts is 100%. I'm still going to go off the fact of this has been a really good first half, a really good scripted team in the first half of games. And the Giants are a familiar foe that this team has seen. I do think the Giants do have this newfound confidence about them, and that's great. But I will say that this game should feel like they're in quicksand because everybody did whatever they wanted to do against Minnesota all year long. And it didn't surprise me that Daniel Jones was upright all game long. I mean, Philly, for the people that think Dallas has a good pass rush, Philly has like 8 more sacks, I think, on the year than Dallas. This is a team that's been very dominant in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Jalen Hurts, it seems like he never gets touched in the pocket, and defensively, they just bring so much pressure with their front four. So needless to say, in a similar situation to the Chiefs, I think it's a game where Sirianni scripts them well, makes easy throws for Jalen. gets them on the board early. And, maybe it becomes an issue in the second half, potentially, as the Giants have been proven to be a good second half team, especially over the stretch of games they've been winning. So I'll take my first half bet and go from there. But I will say this, if the Giants are leading at the half, oh boy, that's going to be a lot of pressure for Philly. This is a team that all year has been questioned about their schedule, questioned about who they've played. And if they get smacked in the mouth early by the Giants, and you need this team to come back, I don't know how good I feel about that. But if this becomes a game where Philly takes over early, which I think it will, the Giants are going to need to have a big second half to win this game.
Giants are hot too, man. They've been playing some good football. They looked offensively very good against the Vikings, and they got stops actually when they needed them. All right, that's 2 games that we're done with. Just a look here, a live look will be Richie James. If I can get him somewhere in the mid-30s, his prop 42.5. I'm seeing 44.5s actually. 42.5 would be fine if you want to get in pregame, but I've got that targeted at 35.5, just to feel a little better about that. Also looking at, we'll get into Saquon. If I can get his receiving prop at like 19, I'm targeting him for 20 yards. So I think he got steamed up to 25.5 receiving yards, but this thing opened at 19.5. I think we can get back to that line. That's the way I'll attack that. And then we got this game where this could be pretty interesting with the Bengals and the Bills. So I was waiting up at night looking at the open. It opened Bengals plus 3.5. And that was 4. And that was 4.5. And then it was 5. And you wake up today 5.5. Is there more Bills money coming in, or is there going to be buyback on the Bengals, JJ? By the way, total here 49.5. That's pretty healthy too.
I will just say real quick. I mean, if Lane Johnson practiced in full today, Maddie, I mean, that might mean he's going to play. I mean, I thought he was already ruled out. But if he practiced in full today and he plays, that is a huge lift for that Eagles offense. It seems like for a decade, he's been probably the best O-line offensive lineman in football. But needless to say, we'll see. I actually thought he was out. I mean, if he's in, that's a big lift for that O-line and for Jalen. But needless to say, for this game, so I don't love the idea of teasers, and I've already mentioned this to you, Holden, in the playoffs. I don't love the idea of them, but I do think if you can get it under minus 120, I do think teasing the Bengals and Dallas both to 10.5. I do think there is some good merit there. It's basically an alternate teaser where you're teasing the Cowboys up 6.5 and the Bengals up 5. And I know I got that minus 119. To me, if either team loses by double digits, it would surprise me. Of course, it can happen, but it would surprise me, especially if Burrow, a guy who is such a big game player, it would be very head scratching if they did lose this game by double digits, especially when we consider Josh Allen's turnover woes. This guy is in the turnover department. He can look as good as any quarterback in the NFL, look like the best quarterback in the NFL for parts of the game. And then parts of the game, you're thinking, what was going on with that decision? Obviously not like as bad as at times Dak can be or Carson Wentz can be, but man, people who put him in that elite bracket with Burrow and Mahomes, Allen turns the ball over. It feels like almost twice as much as both those quarterbacks. So either way, I think it'd be hard pressed to believe Burrow will not keep this relatively close or maybe even win outright. I will say my favorite player prop of the weekend is Joe Burrow over 10.5 rushing yards. That was minus 120 at DraftKings last night. Logic there is he's been running. He has been running. I think he's got 5 or 6 carries in quite a few games over the recent stretch. I know the number is not there, but that did include, I believe, a few QB knees. Granted, he could obviously kneel here as well. But in a game, especially a script where they potentially could be trailing, okay, he uses his legs. It's just the reality. This time of year, we talked about this last year, Holden, if you remember. Quarterbacks who are mobile run more this time of year. Everything's on the line. Play breaks down. They want to get their 5-6 guaranteed yards. 10.5 number for him in a game where it does picture to be a back and forth. Now, I know that they led most of the game against Baltimore. I don't necessarily think they're going to lead most of this game. And again, if you're in a late game script with 5-6 minutes left and the Bengals are down 1 or 2 scores, he's going to be running outside the pocket. It's what's going to happen. I wouldn't be as scared if he doesn't run it for a second. Look, if he gets it early, great. But I think really later in the game is where these quarterbacks run more, especially quarterbacks who are semi-mobile. It's a soft number and definitely favorite player prop of the weekend.
Why wouldn't we look at Mahomes then? A guy that already likes to run.
His numbers are usually in the 20s though, right? Like what's his number?
Yeah. Let me go find it again. I thought it was 19 and a half.
So he definitely can, but similarly in the opposite direction, it's not a script that makes you think he's going to have to run. He can, of course, but to me, it's not a similar script.
That's up to 23 and a half. That's not even worth it now. There's another live betting opportunity. Quarterback rushes. Just back to the Bengals real quick. Jonah Williams, the left tackle's out. Alex Kappa's out. Guard. So if you are concerned about that, then don't back the Bengals.
Could be looking at a similar scenario there, Holden, to what happened to Brady. Was it Mahomes? Was it the Chiefs? Who the Chiefs was? Was it the Bucks the Chiefs lost to? Or the O-line was a mess for the Chiefs going into the game?
Yeah.
Could be similar.
But I think that kind of balances out where Joe Burrow's offensive line sucks anyways, and he's always getting hit. And B, the ultimate equalizer here is Josh Allen, and especially the red zone turnovers. He's just been awful. He's not holding on to the football lately, and that's a concern. So I was saying to myself, I like the Bengals here. I'm getting 5.5 on the road. And then, what sealed it for me? The Tone Dog. I mean, Big T he hadn't been wrong in these playoffs. And I was like, Tony, you're going with the Bengals, right? He's like, absolutely. I said, all right, let's do it. So
I'm sure there's a healthy amount of people lining up to bet the Bills in some capacity this week. To me, you need a ceiling type game from Allen, because it just feels like in every one of these big games you get a ceiling game from Burrow. So I mean, if obviously Allen plays well, they're going to win, but that's the thing. Like, he turns the ball over a ton.
I mean, listen, if you're into motivation too, Joe Mixon's pissed off that they were selling the neutral site AFC Championship game things. Yeah, the tickets. Yeah, I mean, it was awful what happened in that game, but the Bengals kind of got screwed out a little bit.
Yeah, because think about it. I mean, obviously it was early in the game, right? But if the Bengals do win that game, I think they're hosting this game, right?
Yes. And for some reason, there's been no talk about why they didn't get a neutral site. They were in it. They were completely in it. So listen, I think there's a lot of narrative behind the Bengals, no question. I just think this team, ultimately, first of all, there's some rushing issues. They just can't run the ball. James Cook has been good for the Bills, but let me give you my other bet. Okay. So this is kind of steamed down. Devin Singletary, I'd probably given out this prop 2 times, and it's 2 for 2. Let's go 3 for 3, under 43.5 rushing yards. And then I start seeing there are some sharp people that are on this too. Really good player prop bettors. I think they got it at 45.5. I got in at 43.5. I don't think he gets to 40 yards, JJ. Now Cook is starting to get more of the touches back there. This is not a situation where I think Singletary has a very good game. He's probably getting less than 10 carries against an improved Bengals run defense. So they're a little bit better than middle of the pack, DVOA. So I'm going to take Singletary under here. Under 43.5.
Don't mind that at all. Singletary, to me, it's starting to look a lot like the Zeke Pollard situation where when Singletary is in there, he just doesn't look nearly as explosive as Cook does. So no, I don't mind that at all. And especially it's playoffs. We saw it in Dallas. Dallas was using a lot more Pollard in the playoffs. Yeah. And we saw last week, Buffalo was using a lot more Cook. These games mean a lot more. They're going to want their best players out there, and Cook's their best running back. So let me ask you this then. Why don't you correlate it and also bet Cook over?
I mean, you could do that.
I mean, do you think Buffalo's going to rush for 30 total yards?
I'd rather just take the Singletary and not get cute. Try and hit one bet instead of 2, like I didn't do with your first half touchdowns or full game touchdowns earlier today. I didn't like the 50 first and a half, so I went for 3 touchdowns in the first half. So yeah, listen, there is some correlation there. As the season has gone on, I love correlating same game parlays, but I also have found a couple of instances where you could take one team to win, you could take one team's total, and then come back with another player over. I don't think it's the worst way to go if you really like a player prop and you want to mix it in there. Last game, Niners Cowboys. I swept the board last week until Monday, and then I got cocky and I got my ass kicked. Cowboys getting 4 points on the road, 175 money line, 46.5 is the total here. I try not to overreact to what I saw from the week before. What I just saw was the Cowboys beating up on an 8-10 team that had no business being in the playoffs. They just won their division. San Francisco, I've been saying this. I still think they're the best team in the NFL. I think I want to know why you're on the boys. Is it because of Brock Purdy running into trouble, or is Dallas really have an advantage here? Because I don't see it. Niners defense off the charts. They can run the ball. They've been throwing the ball. Debo's back healthy. I don't see it. I don't see the Cowboys this week, JJ. But then again, I didn't see him last week.
So I'll touch on this more on the Print Factory as it relates to DFS as well. But for me personally, this is the Dallas team that showed up last week that legitimate people thought could win the Super Bowl this year. I get it. It was against Tampa, but it's always funny how, like, before the game, people are like, Tom Brady's not losing to dog shit Dallas. And then when Dallas just completely dominates them from head to toe, people are like, oh, well, Tampa was shit anyway. Like, to me, the narratives just kind of move against the Cowboys in every way they can. And for whatever reason, people were legitimately like stating the fact that Tom Brady has never lost to Dallas in his career as if it mattered. Like,
no, that didn't matter. No,
like, I don't understand. Like, the random stats people will think that makes sense. When we talk about in the trenches, this Dallas team is pound for pound. Has the best O-line and best D-line in all of football, pound for pound. They just don't show up to random games. And we'll call it maybe a McCarthy thing, maybe a Dak interception issue thing. But you saw their upside last week. Now, granted, it was against what we would call an inferior opponent, definitely an inferior opponent to San Francisco. To me, this all is going to be on the Dallas D-line. If they can get pressure to Purdy, that is going to ruffle some feathers, because Brock Purdy, as we've seen, first of all, hasn't played any relevant defense probably since he's taken over the starting job. And also, he doesn't throw the ball further than 15 yards downfield. He cannot complete a pass unless the guy is wide open 15 yards downfield. If they can get as much pressure as they got on Brady early, just rushing 4, it's going to create a nightmare for Purdy. And the other thing is Dallas needs to start early, much like they did against Dallas. Get on the board early, get a lead early, and try to not look back. I just think talent-wise, these teams are very equal. And the idea that I can get 4, I do like the spot. I do think you could probably bet first half Dallas instead, and if you're afraid of a trail script. But needless to say, the 49ers defense has not been this highly touted defense either. Like, Seattle should have had a lot more points than they had against San Francisco. And they still ended up with, I think, 20 or something, 17, somewhere in there. But they should have had a lot more. To me, if Dallas plays even 75% of the game they played against Tampa, they likely win outright. But San Francisco's been super dominant, and I can't. But again, I've been staying on Brandhold. It's not like I've been on the San Francisco bandwagon. I'm jumping off. Like, I haven't been on the San Francisco bandwagon since Purdy took over. I think they've been an overpriced team every week, and I think in a game that I line as almost a coin flip, I do like Dallas with the points.
I wish I could bet a Dak interception. Last week was the first time in like 2 months he didn't throw a pick. So I think that's going to change around here, but I think his interception prop, let me look at -150. I can't do it.
Swoop, you can. Just to answer your question on you can play teasers and win. You definitely can. I want to be clear. The reason I was saying I don't like to do it in the playoffs often is because there's a lot more variance in the playoffs. Teams go for broke more in the playoffs, and it does impact the way the game ends. And obviously would impact teasers and adjusted teasers. So I don't like to do them as much in the playoffs, much the same reason why I don't like to do them in college football, because it's a high variance sport. And I just don't do it as often. Of course, you can bet them and win. Same game teasers as well, same kind of logic. I just don't do them as frequently in the playoffs as I do in the regular season. I hope that makes sense.
I do have one thing to ask you before we get out of here. Well, 2 things, because first of all, we got to give our best bets. What is your favorite bestest bet? And if you got 2, go for it.
My favorite bet was definitely Burrow over 10.5 rushing yards.
Mm-hmm.
I think it wouldn't surprise me if he rushed for 25 or 30 yards. And Eagles first half -3.5. Those are my two best bets.
My favorite, it's going to be Evan Ingram over 44.5. And then I'm going to go with Devin Singletary under 43.5. So those will be my two favorite bets this week. They'll both be prop bets. So looking for that. And then my other favorite thing was JJ's facial expression when I told him I bet Jamal Agnew under 10.5 receiving yards. So
I actually for whatever reason I heard it as over. So I was just
you heard it as oh hell no.
I was more in the realm of just the fact that you're targeting him as a player prop. I find.
Well, when there's 4 games, you can really slow down and look at the board, right? There's some games, during the week I'll look and I'll find this and that, but Jamal Agnew just kind of stuck out.
Before we go, James, I will answer your question. So teasers in betting is just you basically can add points to the spreads and combine them. Basically, like a 2-team 6-point teaser is usually like -110 as an example, where you can move a line 6 points in your favorable direction. Like for instance, taking Dallas from 4 to 10, taking Cincinnati from 5.5 to 11.5. You pair them together, Cincinnati plus 11.5, Dallas plus 10.5. Basically like -110, something of that nature.
But don't go through the number. Like Niners -4, don't go to Niners +2. It
is a rule, not to get things complicated for our friend Thomas James Moran, but it is a rule that moving a teaser through 0 is not ideal because you are wasting points. It's not that they can't happen, and obviously people go crazy over it's minus EV. I mean, sure, whatever, but you are just wasting points on your teaser when you do that. Is really the rule. Sure.
All right, and the last thing is I had to cut a demo for a betting site. And it's, 2 guys like us going back and forth. I say, your bet shit. You say, my bet shit. Have you ever had like a good punishment? Because I need a punishment for this thing. Like I'm going to have a wheel of death, and then things will come up. No one's going to die. But is there a good punishment that you can give? Like, have you ever had to deal with that? Your dad and the little person, he gave himself the punishment. Probably did not go through with filleting a little person.
So two things. So two things. I do have some experience in this realm.
Yes.
I do think drinking a bottle of Tabasco sauce is definitely up there.
A whole bottle?
Yeah, that's up there. And then separately, if you're really looking to get kinky, I think you can take a car battery, attach it to a pair of spark plugs, and tie it to your nipples, and then turn the car battery on. I think that's a good way to spark some energy for you in a negative direction.
I wish I didn't.
I hope this was helpful for you.
I truly wish I didn't ask you that.
Well, it's like we started the show.
Wears a dress on the show. I mean, I'll probably wear a dress anyways.
It's like we started the premise of the show, right? Ask me no questions, I'll tell you no lies. You
tell me no lies. So car batteries to the nipples and a bottle of Tabasco.
You need the spark plugs.
And what am I going to do with a woman? I can't have her hook her nipples up to a car battery.
So you're making these types of bets with a woman. So you didn't specify that.
Some will be with a woman, some will be with men.
As an example, if it's a woman that you're associating with sexually, you can use that to your advantage to start checking off some of your vices.
But I can't do that publicly. I have to do that privately. So
you see, you have all these rules that it just makes it complicated. It makes it complicated from my side of the house.
I know. I was just thinking about twerking. Would you like me to twerk for you?
That would do nothing for me. It doesn't mean it won't do anything for the viewers, though. Okay. But I'll be in attendance. Like if we're doing a show, it's not like I'm gonna stop watching. I'll enjoy the show.
It doesn't seem like there's women in here, so I'm just twerking for men. If there was one woman in here, I'd totally do it. But there's 0, and you helped me 0. Absolutely 100% 0.
I think you could take it a step further where you could twerk on video with like a ball out.
Can you just end the show, please?
I mean, it's just we got to take it to the next level, and that's what I'm trying to do here.
I love
how like you say and do disgusting shit, and when I say it, it's like whoa, that's not for me.
I'm old and I've been through the ringer. You're young and you haven't. So I feel like when you say that you've done things, you've not really done things.
Well, okay, that's fair. That's kind of because you're like 65 years
like
old.
You got to go to the swingers club with me. Like that. That'd be a horrible bit for a woman. Horrible.
You're over twice my age, so that's fair. But I do think twerking with a nut out. I think that's good content. Are we good here? Anyway, folks, as always, gamble responsibly. We did recap our best bets. Hopefully, whoever Holden's making bets with, maybe on his next Run Pure show, you'll you'll catch him twerking in a pair of tights with 1 or 2 bags out. Either way, stay safe, gamble responsibly, and as always, folks, run pure. I'll be back with the Print Factory for Run Pure members in a few hours, so I'll catch you all then. Later.